Hello, everybody. This is Pastor Rick, Broadman Baptist Church. This is the Broadman Word for Monday, November 24th, 2025. And today, the title is Such a Time as This. And I want to talk to you about being in this time that we see. There is a lot going on. I don't have to tell you about the things that we see and hear, and not a lot of it, unfortunately, has to do with honoring God or speaking the truth that we know or advancing the kingdom. A lot of it has to do with things just the opposite. It's about me, and it's about now, and it's about hyper-individualism and agendas and politics and left, right, and race and, hating and canceling and all kinds of things that we find, unfortunately, in today's narratives of the world. So with all the strife and upheaval and sometimes outright violence that we see, the feelings of sadness and perhaps being overwhelmed and not understanding what's going on or why, what am I to do in all this? Where am I in the kingdom? And what would God have me do in all this situation? And so I'm going to talk to you about that just a little bit for a couple minutes here. And we're going to use an Old Testament reference from the book of Esther. And to set up the situation for you before I read you the scripture, it's from chapter 4 of Esther, verses 13 and 14. Before I do that, I'm going to set this up for you. Esther is a very young girl. By some estimates, maybe her mid-teens to late teens at most. And she has been, because of her beauty and her, has been selected as a queen. And of course, she is a Jew, and her family, obviously, also Jewish, and are benefiting from her being the queen. Now, the king has become angry, as several folks, but mostly he wants his people to prosper. And so he's about to issue a decree to eliminate all Jews. Genocide, straight up genocide. And so Esther and her family are about to be in peril. Well, you would think as a queen, she could just simply go talk to the king. There's a problem. The king has a policy that any who approach him without his invite are to be put to death unless they're lucky enough to have said something he liked or wanted to know, and he extends his golden scepter. Then you're safe. Otherwise, it's off with your head. So that's quite a chance to take just to go talk to the king. The queen would not have been exempt from this policy. And so Esther now is in a situation where all of the Jewish nation is about to perish. And she is scared. She can't just simply go before the king unless she wants to risk her own life and to possibly not receive the extension of the golden scepter. And so she's speaking with her uncle Mordecai, and after expressing, her thoughts and concerns, Mordecai gives us Esther 4, 13 and 14. And so here we go. It says, he sent back this answer: do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. So Mordecai first in 13 says, hey, if you think the king's going to eliminate all the Jews but leave you alone, think again. And then in 14, we get the meat of our conversation today. He says, for if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. But you and your father's family will perish, and who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. So Mordecai sort of drops this little thought bomb out there like, hey, maybe the reason you're the queen, maybe the reason God has allowed you to be elevated to this position is for this very moment to save the Jews, save your own family, save yourself. And so, for such a time as this, is the consideration. Fortunately, we know she did go talk to the king, and she did receive the golden scepter, and so things turned out. A very young girl, without a lot of life experience and finding herself in this situation, mustered up the courage to risk her own life for her people, for her family, and it worked out. But it was clearly God's purpose for her to be queen. There was nothing particularly special about her other than her beauty. For her to catch the eye of the king and to be elevated to that position was clearly God's hand in her life. And clearly he had in mind this moment for her to step up and do what he wanted to do to protect the Jewish nation. So here we are, understanding that God foreknew us. He knew that who and what and how and when we would be. He knew that he would call us and that we would accept. He knew that this time would exist, all this anger and strife and division and hatred and persecution of Christians all over the place, and the rejection of him and his word, and all of the anti-God and degrading things that we see in this world, made ever more intense and widespread by the internet and social media. God knew all this, but still you're here. You're here, you're alive, you're in this time, and God then needs you to do what you're supposed to do. Unfortunately, I don't believe any of us are going to be called to actually put our life as immediately on the line as Esther. But the theory holds true. We're going to have to sacrifice to speak the truth, but we have to speak the truth. And what's going on around us is not a reason to stay silent. It's a reason to stay loud. It's not a reason to shrink. It's a reason to live big. Because God had his intention for you to be in such a time as this. He needs your skills, your voice, your body, your motivation, your love. He needs your Holy Spirit-filled self out there, showing the light and love of Christ to those who so desperately need to see it. You were made for this. You were made for this time. You were made for this place, and you are very much part of God's plan for this moment in human history. But you got to seek it, you got to want it, and then ultimately you have to do his will and not just simply sit by and watch the world spin away further and further from God's hand. So listen, brothers and sisters, I love you. I hope you have a marvelous day in the Lord. Be sure to go out there and live for this time like you know that God designed you to be for such a time as this. Take care.